Welcome to Divine Couples. Your host, Naomi Slater, will awaken your passion, deepen your intimacy, and invite healing into your relationships, working towards accessing higher levels of consciousness in all areas of your life. Come with us on this journey to explore and experience your fullest potential.
You are listening to Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Naomi Slater, and you have tuned in to Divine Couples, adding intimacy, passion, and healing to your lives. As a motherhood empowerment coach, Jessica Hill does more than inspire overwhelmed mothers to unleash their full potential. Her offerings are tools that can be used to beat stress and anxiety on a daily basis. Jessica teaches prenatal and postnatal yoga, MOGA, mom and baby yoga, hypnobirthing, meditation, and mindset coaching practices. She is a mama to 3. 2 young children are in her arms, and 1 lives in her heart. Jessica has known fertility challenges, infant and twin loss on her journey through motherhood. She uses personal experience to approach her students' unique paths, always with a sense of empathy and compassion. Founder of Activated Mama, Jessica offers both virtual and live programs to support you in pregnancy and motherhood. Connect with her on Instagram at Activated Mama or on Facebook as Activated Mama Yoga. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, Naomi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, and I'm sorry about my pause there introducing you. We'll get into that later, but I just kind of got choked up when I read that one sentence about 2 young children in your arms and 1 in your heart. That was a bit difficult for me to get past just reading, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Jessica, you are a motherhood coach. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. So many women dream of becoming a mother, and others actually don't have this dream, but maybe find themselves stepping into motherhood unexpectedly. But either way, most women at some point along their journey will navigate what I call the inner split. And you can think of this as being that gap between our expectations of motherhood and what reality is actually like. So as a motherhood coach, it's my role to help women reconcile those differences. I can help her to understand her new identity in motherhood so that she can really hold compassion for herself, mother from a place of ease and grace, and ultimately unleash her full potential in both motherhood and life.
Wow, incredible. And that inner split is something that all mothers experience on varying levels. I know that I've experienced it too, and when I heard that term, inner split, I got chills on my arms because I think it resonates so deeply with all mothers. This kind of dissonance between, their expectations of motherhood and what's actually, going on in reality. So I think that what you're doing is so, so, so important in supporting mothers.
Thank you.
So maybe you can tell us about your personal journey and why you are so passionate about what you do.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I am one of those people who probably falls into the category of always wanting to become a mom. And I had a very idealistic vision of what that would be like. I pictured myself as the hippie mama who was always breastfeeding and baby wearing and serving organic food to her children, who would play with wooden toys. And you trust me, I had the vision down.
So idealized.
Yeah, so idealized. I can only laugh at myself now. And of course, along with that, I of course assumed that because my relationship with my husband, Alan, had been so effortless since literally the moment we met, that of course becoming parents would be the same thing. But then we faced fertility challenges, and this really stunned us. We came to an understanding that there was a very low chance we would ever conceive naturally, and receiving this news really brought us to our knees. And that first doctor who delivered that news to us it was really difficult because he sort of compared our choices in terms of fertility treatment, the investment in these choices, to that of buying a car. And for us, this was like the worst news we could ever receive. So yeah, very poor bedside manner, but that really allowed us to take a step back. And I think we spent about a year really taking care of ourselves in a more holistic manner before finding a doctor whom we really resonated with. And I think that was an important step in terms of the match of energy when it came to even using fertility treatments to conceive. So we conceived on our first round of IVF, our beautiful son, Gavin. And then I wanted to get into a more natural approach when it came to preparing for our birth and parenthood. So that's when I personally took the course called hypnobirthing, had our beautiful birth, and then I stepped into motherhood, and it was probably everything that I needed it to be, but nothing like I thought it would be. So right away, I started navigating and experiencing that inner split. And it was everything. It was breastfeeding, sleep deprivation, and just that feeling of isolation, especially during that first year. So from there, I ended up taking a yoga teacher training. And this was for me a way to claim back a piece of myself in motherhood. But naturally, I fell into teaching pre- and postnatal mothers. And fast forward from there to our second pregnancy, which again was an embryo transfer. And lo and behold, the embryo split. And we found ourselves expecting identical twin girls. So this was a high-risk pregnancy. And very fear-based in its management. So I really needed to come back to the techniques I learned through hypnobirthing to keep up a positive mindset and to visualize the ideal outcome. But lo and behold, our beautiful daughters were born a little bit early, and one of the babies was really sick. And shortly after the girls were born, that daughter, her name is Jade, she passed away. So needless to say, this threw me into a stage of motherhood where I was navigating both joy for our surviving daughter, Everly, who is exceeding all of her developmental milestones, and then this deep sense of grief for the loss of her twin. At the same time, being a parent to a very spirited little boy. Our son's name is Gavin. And it was a challenging time for me. I found myself very reactive towards other people in my life and challenged at regaining my sense of self in the face of this loss. And then as a yoga teacher, I had to decide, can I actually step back into this role of teaching mothers, knowing that I might face my triggers at any given moment. But I really am so glad that I made that decision to return to the mat and to return to teaching, because as I had the opportunity to share this story of my own challenges through motherhood, I noticed that I was able to connect more deeply to my students. So the more authentic and vulnerable I showed up, the safer they felt in sharing their stories. So I always say to my students that I gain just as much from our communities as maybe they do from coming to the programs. So I really had to access my inner wisdom and develop key tools that helped me navigate this stress, this anxiety, overwhelm, and grief that I was experiencing. And in doing so, that is where I have stepped forward and really embraced motherhood actually as a sense of a spiritual awakening, where I'm able to look at the loss that we experienced and recognize that maybe Jade came through me for a purpose. Maybe she came through to transform me and allow me to serve on a deeper level, and then impact other mothers in the same way, allowing them to really embrace who they are and who they can become through this journey of motherhood.
Wow, Jessica. First of all, I'm so sorry about your loss, of course. I can't imagine what it's like to go through that, especially, you know, going through that loss and still having a small baby to take care of and another child. That must have been a very, very difficult period. And you're amazing for having, picked yourself up and using your loss to empower other women. I mean, that's just such an incredible and transformative thing that you did. And I'm curious, how long did it take you to kind of get back on the mat? How long did it take you to dive back into teaching and helping other women?
Yeah, so it was 5 months. 5 months later, I had hired a teacher to take care of all of my programs in the later stages of the high-risk pregnancy, and then, of course, in those postpartum months. And I had delayed, I think, by a couple of months returning to the seat of the teacher, because we, of course, never expected this loss to happen. But I realized that I was never going to be, quote unquote, ready. And sometimes we just have to stop waiting for everything to fall into place or to feel like our best, most perfect selves to step forward in a leadership role. And so it was literally just one shaky foot in front of the other. I don't know how I got through that first class, because I do share my story. I touch on the fact that I faced loss, even in my prenatal yoga classes. And so, but that first night, it really showed me what I kind of had already sensed in my heart, that this was a good thing, and that with 1 in 4 women experiencing pregnancy or infant loss along their own journeys towards motherhood, that chances were, when I spoke to the room, somebody might have faced something similar. And I've also recognized that the mothers I work with, they don't have to have faced a challenge that is the exact same as mine in order to really gain the benefits of a safe and vulnerable conversation. Like, we need these safe places to connect and hear those words, "You are not alone." That's like one of the most reassuring words a mother could hear. So
Well, that's incredible advice, I think, really, to everybody in terms of stepping up and showing up and stepping kind of into that leadership role, is that you're never really going to feel ready. You just kind of have to throw yourself into the water. Your case was kind of extreme, and you were incredibly brave in doing what you did. But I think that everybody can learn from that, in that you're never going to feel ready. That you just have to start. And I'm curious, though, do you offer support for other mothers that have suffered a loss? I mean, you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It's just about, feeling feeling that they're in a safe space and that they can share their personal story. But do you have mothers that turn to you because they have suffered a loss?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll never forget my first student who turned to me in those exact circumstances. She had done prenatal yoga with me through her first pregnancy. She was doing prenatal yoga with me through her second pregnancy. And then it was a cord accident, her baby passed away. And she reached out to me the night that she was birthing her beautiful baby, and she invited me to support her through that. We really worked through a mantra that can serve a woman in pregnancy and motherhood, or in the face of loss. And it was simply that I inhale love and I exhale fear. And so, we talked about that right on that very difficult night. But for sure, past her, there have been a number of women who have reached out to me to really support them through the journey of loss. And having walked that path myself, there's so many things that I have learned. One of those things being that the most helpful